A lot of you are not. I don't think there's anybody that's actually got in touch to say that you're supporting it and you think what he said was great. There's a lot they have to do in this area, I think, the politicians, to win over the public. OK, moving on. Right, new NHS figures show that the number of children being vaccinated against serious illnesses like measles and polio is down across all the vaccines that are routinely offered to children. Uptake fell by 1.3%. It might not sound like a lot, but it does show a movement in that direction. And in England, fewer than 7 in 10 of the under-5s were immunised against diphtheria, polio and tetanus. Nigel, what has caused this, in your view?
Well, it seems to be a variety of things. So you've got the problems with the pandemic. So schools were closed for a long period of time, and as a result, vaccination programs didn't happen for children. You've got the problems with getting to see, not so much getting to see a GP, but getting into a GP surgery. So that's causing difficulties, and people aren't getting vaccinated. And the final one is the anti-vax propaganda, that we've had an awful lot of it over the COVID vaccine. There's a knock-on effect now where parents, which I could understand, are saying, well, is this going to harm my child? The same debate that went on, I think, for every parent in the country when the COVID vaccine first came online. OK, if we took it, but you weren't quite so happy about your children having it until you knew that it was safe.
Now, as you might know, I have a dog in this fight, Nigel, because I was part of the team which called for judicial review with the government to justify vaccinating the children against COVID. Before this, I was very much, my children, I just routinely did what the NHS wanted me to do. They had all their inoculations. I didn't even know what an anti-vaxxer was until I started being called it. So can I ask you, what do you think an anti-vaxxer was during COVID? Who were those people? What were they trying to achieve? And why is that affecting parents' uptake on these standard inoculations?
The ones that I got involved with during the pandemic, from a journalistic point of view, were the ones who wanted people to refuse to have the vaccine. That the argument was that they had plenty of evidence, a lot of it quite persuasive, that the vaccine was harmful, it hadn't been fully tested, and people would either get seriously ill or die. And of course, some people did. I mean, some people did have a reaction to that.
So they were right?
Well, they were right up to a point. Then you talk to the people, I talked to more scientists than politicians during that time. Talked to a load of the scientists, virologists and so on, who were saying, look, this is how vaccines work. They are predominantly safe, but yes, you will get some reactions. So at the end of it all, I came down on the side of, yes, get vaccinated against COVID.
I think what I always argued for was very much that from day one it should have been a cost-benefit analysis on the individual, like any medical procedure, which is you sit down with your doctor and you say, do I need this? Am I at risk from this particular condition? And if so, then give me that medicine, whether it's a vaccine or an operation.
But everyone was at risk from COVID.
But that's where you're wrong, because of course you're not by a demographic. So what I'm saying is, you know, the average age of death was 82. 90% of people who were dying.
But everyone could have caught it.
Well, they could have caught it.
And obviously, the older you were, the more at risk you were of dying from it.
Sure.
And I understand that. But I mean, did you get vaccinated?
I've never answered that question.
Fair dues. There's no reason why you should. It's a medical procedure.
Because that was also my other point. My other point was that what it did, that whole campaign, I will come to you, James, I've not forgotten you, is that the coercive and anti-scientific rhetoric around it, which was a one-size-fits-all, just tore apart everything that we'd understood previously as evidence-based medicine. And for me, a big part of that was medical privacy.